It was the middle of summer, and the sun shone down with all its might onto the earth. I didn't really feel like going out. I had come back from college and was on summer vacation with nothing better to do. My childhood friend, Zoe, and I decided to go swimming at the Old Quarry on the outskirts of town in the evening. It lay abandoned for years, filling with water from an upwelling and eventually becoming a secret swimming hole for the local kids, hidden from prying eyes by the thick woods and ghost stories. We arrived right when the sun was setting, so the sky was just that beautiful, somewhat eerie, orange glow. The quarry was a truly eerie, yet beautiful view. Steep rock faces rose on all sides, in a circle around the still black water. We had the soft, flickering lights of the lanterns with us. Dancing shadows played with the rocks. The breeze delivered night sounds along with chilling my body. There were crickets chirping, and once in a while, a fish would splash. Laughing and joking, we dove into the cool, refreshing water, the heat of the day washing away with each stroke. We swam until our limbs grew tired, then floated on our backs, staring up at the stars beginning to twinkle in the deepening twilight. It was peaceful, a moment of pure contentment. That peace was shattered by a sound that seemed out of place, a splash different from the gentle lapping of water against rock. We both sat up, treading water, looking around. "Probably just a fish," Sarah said, but her voice had an edge of uncertainty. We decided to head back, clambering out of the water and drying off. That's when we noticed that one of our lanterns had gone out. I went over to relight it and saw that it hadn't just gone out. It had been smashed, glass strewn about the rock where we had placed it. A shiver of fear ran down my spine, suddenly feeling very exposed in the dim light. "Who's there? We saw you." No response. Then, we heard the sound of gravel rolling. It unsettled us. We hurriedly gathered our things and prepared to leave, the atmosphere heavy with an unspoken fear. We hadn't seen anyone else around, but the quarry was secluded, and it would have been easy for someone to watch us without being seen. As we navigated our return through the dense woods, the sensation of leaves brushing against my skin took on an eerie quality, almost like ghostly fingers tracing my path. Each crack and snap of twigs underfoot sent a jolt of fear through me. Sarah was leading the way, her silhouette occasionally illuminated by the faint glow of her flashlight. As the distance between us grew, "Sarah, wait up!" The woods swallowed my words. I quickened my pace, panic rising when I couldn't see her flashlight ahead. Then, out of the darkness, a hand clamped over my mouth, and I was dragged off the path. I fought, kicking and trying to scream, but the grip on me was too strong. My heart was pounding, sure that this was the end, when suddenly the grip loosened, and I stumbled forward, crashing into Sarah. We didn't stop to look back, running as fast as our legs would carry us until we burst out of the woods and into the safety of the streetlights. Gasping for breath, we looked at each other, the same question in both our eyes. Had we imagined it? It was only later, after we had calmed down, that we noticed the bruises on my arms, shaped unmistakably like fingers. We never found out who had been in the quarry with us that night, or why they had targeted us. And we never went back to the quarry again, and the innocence of those summer nights was lost forever. This one takes us to a sweltering August in Arizona, in a small desert town so tucked away that you'd miss it if you blinked driving down the interstate. My buddy, Alex, and I had decided to take a road trip across the state, aiming to explore the lesser-known nooks and crannies Arizona had to offer. We were drawn to the allure of the desert's hidden secrets, its vastness promising adventure, and, if we were lucky, a story or two to tell when we got back. The town we stumbled upon on our third day was a curious sight. Buildings sun-bleached and worn, streets deserted, and an eerie silence that seemed out of place, even for a desert town. The only sign of life was a dusty diner at the edge of town, its neon sign flickering in the midday heat. The diner, Mirage, it was called, looked like it was from another era, its chrome and vinyl aesthetic untouched by time. We parked our car and headed inside, the bell above the door jingling as we entered. The interior was cool, a welcome relief from the outside heat, and surprisingly well kept. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with a kind smile, greeted us and led us to a booth by the window. As we sipped on ice-cold sodas and waited for our food, we couldn't help but notice we were the only customers. Curiosity got the better of Alex, and he asked the waitress about the town, why it seemed so abandoned. She hesitated for a moment, then, with a glance towards the door as if to make sure we were still alone, she told us about the dust storms. Every few years, she began, her voice low, a dust storm hits this town like no other. It's not just the wind and the sand. It's as if the storm itself is alive. People who are caught outside during it, they don't come back the same. Some don't come back at all. We exchanged uneasy glances, the thrill of adventure suddenly soured by the gravity in her voice. We tried to laugh it off, attributing her tale to local superstition, but the seed of unease had been planted. Thanking her for the food and the story, we decided to explore the town, despite the waitress's warnings to be careful. The streets were silent as we walked, the only sound our footsteps and the occasional gust of wind sending tumbleweeds dancing across our path. The buildings we passed were empty shells, their interiors swallowed by shadows, giving the impression of a town hastily abandoned. As we ventured further, the sky began to darken, an ominous orange hue tinting the horizon. Remembering the waitress's story, we turned back towards the diner, quickening our pace as the wind began to pick up. We had barely made it halfway when it hit, a wall of sand and wind, howling with a ferocity that seemed to consume everything in its path. We ran, shielding our eyes from the stinging sand, the diner's neon sign now a distant beacon in the maelstrom. By the time we reached the car, the storm was upon us, reducing visibility to near zero. The decision to drive out of there was made in desperation, the fear of being caught in the open overriding any rational thought. With Alex at the wheel, we inched forward, the car buffeted by the wind, the sound of sand pummeling the metal like the rattle of bones. It was then that we saw them, shapes in the storm, barely discernible through the swirling sand, moving alongside the car, humanoid, but distorted, as if the storm had warped their very essence. They were following us, or perhaps leading us, their presence an oppressive weight on our chests. The details of how we made it out of the storm are blurred by panic and the instinctive drive to survive. When the dust finally settled, and we could see the clear sky again, we were miles away from the town, the diner, and the storm. We didn't stop driving until we reached the next city, not daring to look back. The experience bonded Alex and I in a way few others could understand. We've spoken little of it since, the memory a shared nightmare that lurks in the back of our minds. The town, the diner, and the dust storms exist now as a cautionary tale between us, a grim reminder of the desert's hidden depths and the mysteries best left undiscovered. Let me take a moment to share with you an experience from the summer of 2013, an experience that has haunted my sleep more times than I'm willing to count. It's a tale I've seldom shared, primarily because recounting it feels almost like stepping back into the moment, a sensation both vivid and unsettling. Yet, here I am, ready to unfold it. The calendar marked late July. It's surreal to think this occurred nearly a decade ago, as the clarity of these memories makes them seem as though they unfolded just yesterday. My summer retreat had taken me to a quaint, coastal town in Maine, a serene escape from the hustle of city life. There, I had found solace in a simple cabin nestled by the shore. The cabin, though humble, boasted a charm with its rustic demeanor and a porch that faced the vast Atlantic. The ocean, a canvas of deep, enigmatic blues, contrasted beautifully against the vibrant summer skies. Inside, the cabin welcomed with the aroma of pine and aged timber, its walls decorated with nautical paintings that captured the essence of coastal life. A tranquil routine soon enveloped my days. Each morning began with me on the porch, cradling a cup of coffee, as I watched dawn break in a spectacle of oranges and pinks. The afternoons were for meandering through the surrounding wilderness and coastline, gathering scenes and emotions for my art. By evening, I found solace by the window, the soothing cadence of the ocean waves accompanying me as I transferred the day's inspiration onto canvas. Then, on one such evening, as the horizon blazed with the fiery hues of sunset and the night's first stars dared to shimmer, my gaze was drawn to an anomaly. There, on the beach, stood a figure at the very brink of the water, immobile as a statue. The distance made their features indiscernible, yet there was an eeriness in their stillness, in their silent vigil facing the sea, that unsettled me. I initially dismissed it as a local absorbed in the beauty of the evening, attempting to refocus on my artwork. Yet, the image of that lone figure, against the backdrop of the fading day, lingered in my mind, a prelude to the unfolding mystery that would haunt my nights in Maine. However, as the days passed, I noticed the figure more frequently, always at the same time, always in the same spot. They never moved, never interacted with anyone, just stood there, a solitary silhouette against the setting sun. Curiosity eventually got the better of me, and one evening, I decided to approach him. As I made my way down the beach, the sand cool under my feet, I noticed the figure seemed to shimmer slightly, like a mirage. With each step closer, a feeling of unease grew within me, the air around me feeling thicker, charged with an inexplicable energy. When I was just a few yards away, the figure suddenly turned towards me. There was a blinding flash of light, and then nothing. My eyes went dark. I completely lost consciousness and fell down. When I woke up on the beach, the first light of dawn creeping over the horizon, I had no recollection of what had happened after the figure turned, only a deep sense of dread that settled in the pit of my stomach. Shaken, I hurried back to my cabin, vowing to keep my distance from now on. But it was as if the encounter had opened a door I couldn't close. Strange occurrences began to plague my days and nights in the cabin. I started to paint less and less, my days consumed by an obsession with finding out the truth about the figure and the strange occurrences. My paintings, once filled with vibrant colors and life, now reflected the turmoil inside me, dark, swirling landscapes where shadowy figures loomed just out of sight.